14 years. I've been out for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. I just want to say one thing about Mark Headley. I could say a lot of things. I'm honored to be on the same stage as this guy. And one of the things that he talked about having no credit, and all these strikes were against him because he had no history and all that. I can say that in about 3 years, he started a multi-million-dollar company. He's doing just fine. So this is a real man, in my opinion. I was very happy and honored to be invited here by Frau Caberta and Hamburg, excuse me. And I kept thinking about what I was going to say, and I really didn't know what to talk about and even last night I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll talk about that, and I didn't write a speech or anything. So, but then I started to think about it, and what I want to talk about today is why I think Scientology is dangerous. Some examples, because just as Larry said, I mean, you could go on and on and on for days and days talking about Scientology. And so I want to try and hopefully be specific in a way that's useful to people in governments, because as far as I understand, one of the major purposes of a government is to protect the people. And Scientology is, in my opinion, quite dangerous. It's not Darfur, but it is our own little slice of hell. An interesting thing for me is that the word Scientology, per L. Ron Hubbard, he describes it many times. And it's defined by him simply as knowing how to know. And it occurred to me today that that's an interesting thing, because what Scientology is selling, one of the major things that they sell to get people to buy their services is certainty. You will have certainty in your life, which is very seductive. People want to know. People want to know. It's difficult, I think, for people to wonder, to not know. And so they're seduced by this certainty. But when you think about it, it can be quite dangerous. There was a wise man who said, he who thinks he knows doesn't know. He who knows he doesn't know knows. And so if you have certainty, which is what happens with the Scientologist, they know they're right. And what's dictated to them in this religion comes from the scriptures, quote unquote, from L. Ron Hubbard and now David Miscavige. So in other words, what's the right thing and what is true is told to them. For the only faith, I was very trained in Scientology, and I studied it deeply. The only faith I could ever come across, the only faith in this religion, quote unquote, is that if L. Ron Hubbard says it's true, then it is true. So you get these people with certainty. They know. And what they're operating on is what L. Ron Hubbard said. So, part of what L. Ron Hubbard is telling these people is that we are the only hope for mankind, for this planet. Indeed, this sector of the galaxy, whatever that means, is on a precipitous fall toward terrible destruction that makes Dante's inner circle of hell look like a picnic. Okay? So, if those are the stakes, and you now know that you're the only hope for mankind, what are you willing to do to save these people? Because Scientologists, people who get involved in Scientology, from my experience, are some of the most decent, generous people you can ever meet. Think about somebody like Larry or Mark who joined the Sea Organization. I mean, what kind of a person is it that's willing to sign a $1 billion-year contract and spend year after year after year for no pay, for no decent food, and no sleep to help people like me move up the bridge to total freedom, which is what Scientology is made up of, is basically a series of steps called the bridge to total freedom. And it's the one route, the only route, according to Hubbard, to free man from this trap and save mankind from certain destruction. So when you have this certainty, you understand, it helps to justify what some of the people are willing to do. Does that make sense? So I thought another interesting point that maybe would be useful to people in government, and maybe even particularly in Germany here, is a concept in Scientology that, per Hubbard, when you reach a state called the state of clear in Scientology, you're no longer a Homo sapiens. Do you understand? You're now what he calls a Homo novus. And if you think about that, it's really, really dangerous. I mean, it calls to mind, for me, the whole concept of Übermensch. It's an Übermensch. You're not even, it's the difference between a Homo erectus and a Homo sapien. You're now a Homo novus. So you might be friendly with this Homo sapiens, but it's almost like a pet. It's a cute thing, but they're just an unenlightened creature that doesn't understand. And you see how now this distances you from others? And you people in government, be assured that a Scientologist can be very charming, he can be very nice. As I said, they're very decent people. But they do know that they are more evolved than you, then they're the only ones who understand the way it really is. And they are the only hope. So would they be willing to lie or mislead you? I mean, if you're the only hope for mankind, it's justifiable to kill somebody. To go to any length to save the group. Because they operate on a concept also of what is the greatest good. And built into that concept of what is the greatest good is that it's definitely Scientology. Because we're talking about saving the planet. And these poor Homo sapiens walking around don't get it. So we have to come in and take care of them. And if people get hurt along the way, it's in the name of Scientology, which is the only hope we have. So you see why these concepts are dangerous. Now this also leads to something else for me that is really awful. It's probably one of the main reasons I'm here today, because I'm an unlikely person here, but one of the things that really gets me, and I'm not even a victim of it, too bad, is this whole concept that Mark alluded to called disconnection. And now you understand. Let me ask you something. You know,